They're like, oh yeah, guy with Pensy steam comes in every once in a while. They're not really much. Really test LED in the headlight, but we'll take this.
Known quite well by all. She's the regular combination. She's a Wabash cannonball.
And proceed to 15.
Hey everybody, this is Pensy Joe back again for another TCS WOW install, and we're finally here, guys. It's the PRR L1s. Right here I have it doing something different this time on the test loop, and I'm just going to do a couple sounds of what the finished product looks like, and then we're going to go through the photo by photo process of what I have done to make this model a reality. Now, the sounds you might hear don't sound the greatest, partially because there's something with the speakers and the enclosure system that's still making this rattling sound. And I'm thinking of replacing the speakers in the long run. So, it's still subject to change, but the main focus is obviously going to be on the coder install itself. So without further ado, as we round close to this little clip right here that's about a minute long, we shall get to the DCC install. Alrighty, so right now we have the locomotive and tender upside down in the locomotive cradle, and I'm going to unscrew everything that you see below except the tender trucks and taking off the bogie that's under the firebox of the locomotive. And then we'll get started to take the shell off. So pretty much when I did the review on this locomotive, we're just doing exactly kind of like in the review, except we're going to start taking stuff apart. I do have, it's off screen, but at the top off screen there is a TCS WOW wiring diagram to help me out. And when you get the kit as well, if you want to do a PRR L1 by Broadway Limited, it should also help you as well. Alrighty, so now we got the shell of the locomotive and tender off. We can see the Paragon 3 decoder and the tender with the tether going to the rear headlight and marker lights. And for the locomotive, we can see that motor the motor right there with the flywheel, and a couple of wires that are going towards the marker lights under the steam chest, right there near the front. And we have wires going up towards the extra weight with the smoke unit, which that will be taken out. We're not going to use that anymore. And we got other wires that are going under the motor towards the board that's under the cab base plate where the crew figures are sitting. So we're going to do some more unscrewing with the screws and starting to fray wires and cut off some JST plugs off, because we're not going to really need any of those anymore. Alrighty, over here by the locomotive, as you can see, I've taken off the front smoke box plate there with the headlight over there. I cut the wires for the JST plug that connects to the smoke unit extra weight, and the top of the screen near the boiler of the smoke box, actually, you can see that the smoke unit's over there. So I've already taken the smoke unit out. I also have the weight somewhere along the side somewhere else, so that I don't really need a smoke unit, obviously. So now it's going to be easy for me to just do the wiring setup inside the boiler of the locomotive. We also have unplugged all the JST plugs from the locomotive. As you can see, there's also the smoke switch near the motor taken out as well. I don't need that anymore. And I'm getting ready to start soldering wires together. Generally, all Broadways from the Paragon 3 that are the pretty much normal steam engines that have the tether that go to the locomotive from the tender, we have this JST 9-pin board at the back, the female, and that accepts the plug. We see that in order from top to bottom or from right to left of the locomotive, you get right rail, which is
plus usually. Motor minus or motor plus. Well, in this case, it's motor plus. You got 3.3 volts for all your lighting positive inputs. Your sensor can be your ground for your marker lights or headlight, depending on how you want to do it. GND is obviously for your front headlight. And the other sensor can be for, again, marker light or headlight. And then motor minus along with track left to finish that. Alrighty, as you can see, I've already done the positive for all the lighting functions. We got the cab light soldered with the headlights, which is the gray wire, and the brown wire, which is positive for the marker lights, are all going to the one source for the 3.3 volts. Under the motor, I've also unscrewed the motor's mounting point so that I can move the motor out of the way and be able to mess with the wires under the boiler running board for the chassis. And I also have the grounds all wired up as well, because you're going to need to know where each of these black wires coming from the JST at the end of the cab where the crew figures are sitting on top of, in order to, make sure all your wiring's correct. And you might think it might be a little bit of a mess. It will be a little bit of a mess, especially trying to get the universal joint back with the motor and the gearbox tower after you're said and done. But it's not really that bad once you know the repeated process. Is not going to be complicated enough so that you're going to forget how to put it back together. Alrighty, as we can already see, the Paragon 3 decoder is now gone. We no longer need to use that anymore. I've started to twist some wires together so that when I do right rail and the JST wire that's going to the right rail of the locomotive, they will all be power picked up by the red wire, as you can see right over there, with some yellow heat shrinking tube already done. So the process of this is pretty much forward from here. You pretty much translate what you already do in the locomotive to the 8-pin JST plug and the JST plug head and the tender with the decoder. It's not really complicated. Again, you can always refer to the locomotive's cab, under the cab where the crew figure seat sit. You can look at that and determine what right to left or left to right will be when you're wiring this locomotive and hardwiring it together. You also use the guide, again, from the wiring diagram that TCS provides to you. Alright, so there's a bit of a disclaimer here. I had some user error myself when I did this project. Now, there was nothing wrong with the wiring at all. My wiring was 100% correct, to be honest with you guys. It was that I had my Athearn DC controller hooked up to my track. So when I turned on my Digitrack Zephyr controller, it was not responding with the track, and I was like, what the heck, what did I do wrong? I didn't do anything wrong. And I realized after opening this thing up and checking everything again and then putting it back together, it was me forgetting to put back in the plug-in to the track with the Zephyr digital controller. So I was like, oh, so I was correct all along. I just forgot to simply swap the plugins for the controllers. So it was funny, but, this is showing the overall progress of what was going on so far. Alright, so with that being done, the locomotive is no longer needing any more work done to it. It's time to put back the shell on the chassis and screw everything back into place. And here it is right now, finished. The locomotive's finished, and all we have to do is just finish up the tender and wire up the speakers, and we should pretty much be ready to go for running. Okay, so you're all probably wondering, that is a jumble of mess. Well, remember, before you do any 3.3 volts to any of your lighting sources, make sure you have at least a 1K ohm resistor so that you don't blow out the LEDs that are already inside a Broadway limited model. really just a 1K ohm or 1.2K ohm resistor is good enough. And then after that, you can wire whatever's going to the locomotive and wire any and all the lighting functions that are going to anything that's going into the tender, like the rear headlight and marker lights, which is that red wire that's going to the back top right corner. And then you can just do reverse headlight, which is the yellow wire, and the purple wire that's connected to not only the marker lights as the ground output, but also to the marker lights of the front of the locomotive. And that pretty much wraps that up with the two purple wires on the other side of the decoder connecting to the speakers down below. And there we have it, everybody. Tender shell's now backed on and screwed down, and we're ready to go for a test run on the loop. So again, this is one of those videos that's not going to show too much going on in terms of video recording. I will do a live version of models that I have duplicates of, or more than one road number of a model in my fleet. So that will be more in depth for those who want to see the actual process from start to finish thoroughly. Well, everybody, I hope you guys enjoyed this install video for the PRR L1s by Broadway Limited. And I'll see you guys next time trackside for future videos. This is Pensy Joe signing out. Bye now.
Hear the lonesome hobo squall, riding through the jungle on the Wabash Cannonball. Well, the eastern states are dandies, so the western people say. St. Louis to Chicago, Rock Island by the way. From the hills of Minnesota, where the rippling waters fall, no chances can be taken on the Wabash Cannonball. Oh, listen to the jingle, the rumble and the roar, as she glides along the woodland to the hill and by the shore. Hear the mighty rush of the engine, hear the lonesome hobo squall, riding through the jungle on the Wabash Cannonball. Now here's to Daddy Claxton, may his name forever stand, and may be remembered in the courts throughout the land. When his earthly race is over, let the curtains round him fall. We'll carry him home to victory on the Wabash Cannonball. Oh, listen to the jingle, the rumble and the roar, as she glides along the woodland through the hill and by the shore. Hear the mighty rush of the engine, hear the lonesome hobo